Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, welcome back, secret friends, to Code 47, podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 163. I am Charlie Carden, Trek Lord of West Michigan, your humble servant, joined as always by my Trekkin' number one, Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, hello.
Hello.
All right, we're recording on a Monday or on a Sunday, and the great news is that if you are a member of our Patreon, you see how easy that segue was. If you're a member of our Patreon, you are listening to this episode almost immediately after recording it. So that's one of the perks of being part of the Secret Friends Unite Patreon at patreon.com. All of our shows come out early. We have a ton of exclusive content, including a great series that Peter and I have been doing about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, which is can't miss. And then there's a channel exclusive on our Patreon for just Discords. It's or on our Discord for just Patreon members. Blah, blah, blah. See, early Sunday morning. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But what I can tell you is that your first week is free. Your first month is half off, and you stay on board for as little as $2 a month. So don't lose that money by not signing up, because there's a ton of great entertainment there. So again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. We'd love to have you on board. Secondly, we're brought to you in part by Argo's Used Books and Comics right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the East Side community known as East Town. They've been around since 1975. I've been shopping there since I was a kid in the 80s. In the last couple of years, Crystal and Roger have taken over as the new owners. They've really changed the place around for the better. They're always looking for new inventory, new books, new comics, etc. So you're going to want to check them out on Google, Facebook, or Instagram. Let them know that you heard about them here on one of our podcasts. And you can join their Argonauts comic book pull list. So hold 5 or more titles a month and save 10%. Again, Argo's Used Books and Comics right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and tell them Secret Friends Unite sent you. All right. Well, we've actually got some news stories coming to the close here at the end of 2025. Peter, what have we got up first? And it was funny when I found this headline maybe a month or so ago, and then it came back around again. I don't even know what the context was that I first found it in, but now we have a release date on this. So what's going on with this documentary?
All right. So for those who have not heard, there is a documentary called Beam Me Up Sulu, which is releasing February of next year, 2026. I don't know that it gives us an exact
No,
day,
I don't see that. No, Feb 17th.
Feb 17th. Okay.
Yeah.
So February 17th. This is going to be a documentary about a fan film that George Takei took part of in 1985.
The year of Back to the Future. Yeah.
Yeah. So hilariously, going on it, you see the costumes that they're using that are kind of a mash of TOS and Wrath of Khan with some elements.
Right.
But I have not actually seen this fan film myself, so I can't really speak to it. But the documentary has a bunch of people with commenting, like talking about it, including Alexander Siddig, Christina Chong, Garrett Wong, and Alexander. So and it's being executive produced by Rod Roddenberry. So so this is not like a small scale, just like somebody going like, hey, let's do a documentary about this fan film that happened. This is a big deal. And it's probably because this is one of the early bits of fan production that was actually had someone from the original cast in it.
Big time.
And then also just like got produced like that. So it's really, really cool. That this is going to happen. So it's going to make me probably go around and try to find the original film.
Yeah,
because I've seen clips of it around.
Yeah, that's what makes me wonder is how accessible the fan film is. If it's not, the hope would be that shining a light on it like this would make that the case. Yeah. But this is really cool, and yeah, you're right. It's a great example of somebody in Southern California, LA area, which facilitated George's involvement, since that's obviously where he lived back in those days. That they just simply, it kind of reminds me of our own efforts. A lot of the people that we've interviewed over on our Spotlight program are people I've just reached out to from social media, whether it be Star Trek people, whether it be comic book, Marvel and DC writers from, back in the day, back in this era, or further back, or even closer. You just reach out and just say, hey, I'm doing this thing, or I'd love to chat with you in our case, and would you be interested? And a lot of them are just people who are just like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'll do that.
That sounds fun. Now, of note, for those who are starting to get ideas,
it's very different these days.
These days, it's very different. There are some new guidelines that prevent this sort of thing from happening. Those could change, to be fair. But as of right now, fan film productions are not allowed to have anybody who previously or currently is associated with working on the official brand in any way.
It's unfortunate,
which kind of sucks.
You're
now there's a reason why, but it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, so. I agree. So you're right. This was a little bit more in kind of the Wild West days where they could do. Yeah,
we were still doing that in the early 2000s with fan films like Star Trek Continues or Phase 2, or even the folks that I work with, Starship Excelsior. We had a couple people on for the 50th. So it was possible up until a certain event. That happened.
Right. And now, we don't need to get into that, but now, you will see actors from shows like you recently in the thing that was produced by, now I'm going to draw a blank, but the really great one that came out where Sam Witwer was doubling as Kirk. His death.
That's officially licensed.
Robin Curtis was in that, but that was pretty, produced in conjunction with Roddenberry.
That has, as long as you're tangentially associated with like an official licensee, like Roddenberry Entertainment or something, then you can. But if you're just like just going off on your own, like, hey, I want to tell a Star Trek story, you got to be a little careful now.
Yeah, exactly correct. So this looks fun, and I'm certainly interested in looking out and seeing how available this is. But yeah, that'll be fun. So February, does it say being released digitally? So it should be.
I would imagine it's digitally.
Yeah, for me, this is worth purchasing if it's not streaming. And after this comes out, we will we'll talk about it right here, because I'm sure that Peter and I will both want to watch it right away. So you will hear about it from us, and we'll probably have more fully fleshed out. Have a U.S. premiere on Feb 12 as part of a Tribeca membership screening, and Tribeca Films will then release it digitally on Feb 17. So yes, we will. As long as it's not cost prohibitive, I'll say let's snap it up, because I think it'd be worth the money.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, moving on. So that's good and exciting news. Now we're moving on to kind of some unfortunate news. We talked fairly recently about how, with the change at Paramount and its new corporate parent Skydance, how licensing agreements changed, which is it's the nature of the beast. Yeah, it's the nature of the beast, and that's why the Hero Within company ceased making their Trek theme jackets. Some of which were pretty cool, some of which were kind of corny. I don't really go for corny stuff, but when something is kind of has that costume accurate vibe, I own their Stranger Worlds excursion jacket, the landing party jacket, which I thought was very accurate. But some of the other ones, whatever it is, but different people like different stuff. Now there's an art company called Retrospect Studios. And as I scroll down and I recognize the artist, I've seen her on social media, and maybe I met her somewhere at a convention or something, because her face looks like very familiar. Like I feel like we've had a conversation. Yeah. Who produces what to me look like very beautiful watercolors, and they're very, very actor accurate. You see in this article that we're looking at, if you check the show notes, we have links for both the articles, both the news items we're talking about. They've got great what look like watercolors of Avery Brooks, Nana, and Andy Robinson in character, and one of Kirk doing the famous Shatner yell, and a picture of the Enterprise D. She is. Her name is. I don't want to say Maharaj.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, gotcha. But again, she seems but Kavita Maharaj and is unfortunately discontinuing her relationship. So that's the downside on that. The upside is that Nacelle Toys, which is owned by Brian Volkweiss, who we've not only talked to on this program, but I'm actually in talks to have him back with us to chat with Peter and to chat about kind of his company. But we're also in the second half of the show continuing to talk about The Center Seat, which is produced by Nacelle Productions on the other side of the fence. Their action figure line, of which the first wave, which I have pre-ordered, is set to drop any day now. You know, we've known about it for a little over a year. Brian was on with us earlier this year on our Spotlight segment where we talked about his love of Star Trek and about these action figures. First wave is being delivered. Second wave order available for pre-order, which I've pre-ordered a few of them. The first wave, I personally got them all. The second wave, I kind of picked. I was kind of picking and choosing. There weren't for me, it's not as many essentials. And then there's a third and a fourth wave, which have been announced. And what Brian is going on to say is that there's a link posted here of a bit that he did over on Instagram, is that they are sticking with it. They were able to negotiate and stay put, as is kind of a friend of the show, friend personally of the people at Fansets, who make the beautiful both pins. Pins are not really my thing, but badges are. They make great magnetic badges, which for us costumers are a must. Although they're always very specific to say their badges are not specifically for cosplaying, but really they work really very well. And I own several, which
very, very close to screen accuracy.
Frankly, I was trying to reach one. Oh, I don't know why I'm bothering to do this because this is not we're not on video. But anyway, I had one within reach. This is my Strange New Worlds Command Delta.
Yeah, the one that I use a lot is the Wrath of Khan one, which the edges could be a little pointier on the Delta. Right. But it's pretty great.
To look at it, it's pretty sharp. So they're gonna continue production. They do show in here their latest pins, and their latest magnetic is from the animated series. It's the Science. That's the Science one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's Science. That's Science, not Engineering. Sometimes I get them crossed over. But they continue to function. Their website fansets.com, and of course you can find Nacelle Toys at a web address. I'm sure is very similar. I was scrolling up and down to see if they had it listed straight out, but they're very easy to find with Google. And then let's not forget there's a burgeoning relationship, and it's funny because it's being built upstairs as we spoke between Lego and Star Trek, and then the Star Trek Enterprise D, which is now available. April is the Lego builder in our house. I don't know. She enjoys it more than me. I guess I have a complicated relationship with Lego.
I love building Legos. I just could not afford the Enterprise.
We struggled with it, and because we wavered on Black Friday for a matter of hours, I didn't get the shuttle pod because when they were out,
they were done. Yeah,
it doesn't exist. It's gone. Yep. And then now it's on the aftermarket.
The scalpers are selling it for a lot.
Yeah, April said she was searching because she's like, "Well, I'm going to get it for you." I'm like, I don't want you to get it for me. It's ridiculous.
I found $600 for the Enterprise and the shuttle pod.
Oh my god! Well, she found
more than it went.
She found somebody who was selling 6 shuttle pods, which means they would have had to buy 6 Enterprises. So do that math, and it's just like, yeah, dude, what are you doing? And maybe selling the Enterprises separately as well. But anyway, I mean, hey, free market economy. What are you going to do? If people are buying it, people are buying it. But hopefully, the little shuttle pod will become available separately someday because I would still obviously like to have it.
Lego's really good about keeping exclusives, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of like with the HasLab, some of the toys I have, like the Hiss Tank for G.I. Joe, wasn't exclusive, but now they've produced another version of it, which I think is one of what Hasbro is now doing is made to order. Like they'll put something out there and they'll give a date, and then it won't be as expensive, but then
Lego may, like, for instance, do another version of the shuttle pod with a different character.
Right.
And then that might count, but I don't think they'll be re-releasing this one in particular because they don't tend to do that.
Yeah, I hear you. Unknown yet if on Netflix internationally, if the entire Star Trek library will be going away, or at least that's what it says in this article. Although apparently internationally, each one of the shows, it does say leaving soon. So I guess they're kind of doubling down backwards on it. For me, and again, this may be a very kind of egalitarian thing to say. I've owned all of those old shows on disc for years. And I own, as I was telling Peter, the episode that we're going to talk about shortly is a TNG episode, which I own digitally in addition to owning on disc. So the way they get us when you're a hardcore fan of the old Star Trek is that we buy them over and over and over again. So having them on streaming is that, you're right, that's something for more casual fans, which I understand. It's good to have casual fans because otherwise how does fan base grow? But
as I've said before, I own them digitally because I have the physicals and I have technology to make it digital for myself,
which I need to get around to doing so far. So anyway, this article does end up with saying that the Hero Within is winding things down. And again, we're recording this right before Christmas. So basically in late December, and their contract obviously ends on 12/31. They do have pre-orders still available, and if you love that company, I would encourage you to swoop in there. They have two Star Trek 60th anniversary things. They have a nice quality looking t-shirt and a nice, basically varsity jacket looking kind of thing. So swing on over to their website if that grabs you. But again, it's the ebb and flow of corporate America, and it's just pretty much what you deal with when you're licensing something that's a franchise property. So other licenses will appear, and as they appear, we'll talk to you about them because that's what we do.
Yep. Hopefully, someone starts making props again. That would be nice.
I would love it. I would love it if somebody made actual uniforms. The
only ones that we had was a Novos, and they went away.
Yeah, exactly. So and those are definitely right.
Best.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they were a little. It was a little too rich for the blood of many. But regardless, as those things evolve, we will talk to you about them. All right. Well, let's move on. We're sticking with the random episode format. So quite some time back, this episode was actually chosen by Peter. And again, if for some reason this is your first time listening to us, our random episode, or random SODE as we call it, someone simply threw a series of numbers by choosing a series, a season, and an episode. We get a completely randomized, quasi-completely randomized selection to talk about. We do a deep dive on that single episode. So Peter ended up choosing sometime back from Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 7, The Enemy. Quick summary: LaForge and a Romulan are trapped on a planet ravaged by electromagnetic storm. Worf turns out to be the only viable donor to save the life of a different injured Romulan who is in sickbay aboard the Enterprise. This was written by David Kemper and Michael Pillar, directed by David Carson, so you got some serious talent involved in making this. Aired week of November 6th, 1989. All right, so let's get into it. So, Peter, you obviously came to TNG, although, you watched it as a nascent youth. When you were a little bit older when you watched this, probably for the first time, and paid a little bit stricter attention. So how old were you when you were doing your first watch through as a
when I was actually paying attention, I was probably about 12 or 13.
Okay, gotcha. I would have been 13 in 1989 when this came out. Yeah. So but it was during that period where I was inconsistently watching. It wasn't really till season 5 that I watched consistently. But by that time it was in syndication. And so because it was syndication, it was on 5 nights a week. So I got all the way caught up.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And I used to tape them.
I watched it all the way through. But
yeah. I used to tape this. I've mentioned this before. I used to tape them on VHS, and my mother would do it when I was away to college. Tape them and pause it, the commercials, and unpause it and came back, so you had a complete commercial-free program to watch.
Yep.
Oh man! But yeah, tell me about this episode. Get us started.
Yeah. So this episode starts with Riker, Geordi, and Worf going down to the Galorndon core, which is a planet that we've heard of a couple times, as I recall.
It gets a shout out again in Unification. It's the
it gets mentioned
where the last act plays out in the second episode, where the Romulans are going to invade. And then
it gets mentioned there. It gets mentioned. I mean, in Star Trek Online, it gets mentioned pretty regularly. It's like Galorndon core is a thing.
I think it's one of the coolest named planets you can have because it's not like Aldebaran Prime or blah 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 3. It's
Deneb
like the Galorndon core. Yeah,
I mean, because
core.
Technically, like Earth would be Sol 3.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right.
Anyway, so they're going down. They're looking for a distress signal. There's lots of crazy electromagnetic storms. They find a crashed ship. They pick up a injured Romulan. I mean, Worf kind of also punches him. So, you know.
I
there's that.
absolutely loved I wrote this. This is maybe a little politically incorrect, but it was Worf's open palm bitch slap to knock that Romulan out. Bonk.
That is Worf's like favorite move is the
it's a Makbara.
The heel of the wrist.
Yeah, and I did. It was one thing I noted even before that is that the so we're in the cold open, and it's the windstorm and it's dark, and then they beam in. But I'm like, I said it's weird to see them running around on stage 16, which was most of the set dressing that they did, and everything is dark or it seems dark. But when you compare to the way how dark everything is, and like you got to turn your lights off to watch a TV show anymore, because like Game of Thrones, think about the night scenes on that were so dark. Or
like if someone's face is in shadow, you can't see half of the face.
Yeah, or I always noted Daredevil, even the Netflix version or even the current one that's on Disney Plus, is so dark you can't watch with the lights on. You're gonna miss everything. So, but this was dark, but it wasn't like that dark. You could still kind of see like they were still lit.
Dark, basically.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which if you've been to the theater, you can tell there's a difference between. Yeah. Anyway, right. So Geordi falls down a pit.
Right. I think it's absolutely spectacularly lands on his face, and he's fine. Yeah. And it looked like it was a drop of maybe
30 feet.
Yeah.
At least.
So 10 meters. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny because it was the same hole production wise from like, was it the Arsenal of Freedom? The one where Beverly and Picard fall down. He's fine. She breaks her leg really bad. And then when
did Picard land on his face, that might be the solution.
Yeah. Riker finds him and Data's going to jump down. He says, Data, it's 10 meters, 11.7, sir, but I'll be fine. So, but yeah, Geordi falls on his face in a pile of mud and he's like, oh, just shakes it off. I think maybe he has some superpowers we don't know about.
Geordi has Wolverine healing factor.
Yeah, except for his eyes. Oh.
I guess it's more like Deadpool. Oh no.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of I guess it's good he drinks his milk. I said he's got strong bones because he would have broken a lot of stuff.
Yep. So basically then what happens is there's a lot of interference on this planet because of the electromagnetic storm. So Worf and Riker have to leave because otherwise they're going to get, electrified and dead. So they beam up, and Geordi is now stuck in this pit, helpless.
Right.
So
yeah, it's pretty spectacular. And then that's the end of the cold open. So moving back into the show, it's pretty spectacular. Geordi's a really smart guy, but he manages to find little bits of metal, and then he carves out a pit in the dirt and puts them in there, and he melts them, and apparently they cool off really fast because he's able to pick them up, and then even in his what should be broken state, he's able to use them as pitons to pull himself out of this pit. Geordi might be the most robust and powerful member of the cast. I feel like, you come back to an episode where he was holding Worf and Geordi, he's holding Worf in one arm and Geordi in the other and kind of flexing them, because he just seems too powerful. But we're right at the beginning of the uniform change where we ditch the one piece for the male main cast. While you still see the one piece, you get a collared one piece for the women main cast, and then you have the seasons 1 and 2 uniform for everybody else. But this is only, like I said, episode 7. So between this, when they first came out, first episode filmed was actually the Ensigns of Command, even though they showed it second. The uniforms were really tight, and they had these pleats going down from basically the collarbone to the bottom, and that did not obviously work for Jonathan Frakes or for Patrick Stewart because theirs changed almost immediately, but you're seeing them kind of interspersed. Worf still wearing his, Geordi is not, Data is. So I just thought it was a weird tweak that everybody figured out that they were super uncomfortable, so they started shuffling them down until you didn't see them anymore.
Yep. Yeah, there's the first couple episodes in this season. There's a lot of uniform weirdness until they figure it out about halfway through.
Yeah, and then those uniforms stay pretty consistent. Like Beverly's still zips in the front in this one, even though she's always wearing
stays zipping in the front for a little while. Yeah, and then eventually it moves to the back.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that takes it to like the end of the season.
Which is crazy because I own one of those. I own all three of those two-piece uniforms that I got from the exceptional Mimo Studios for Dennis Chu, who's great, but who's a customer, a serious Trek customer, has probably heard of him. And yeah, they're accurate and zip in the back, so you don't even really know how anybody could ever get into one of those. I know when I have put them on, I have to have April zip me up, and she works the fish, the hook and loop, because it goes all the way at the bottom and at the neck. So we got to get you in. We got to get you into one of those. Yeah, we got to get you into one of those eventually.
Yeah. So we get a visit in sick bay where they're like looking at the sick Romulan. The Romulan's gonna die if he doesn't have a ribosome infusion, apparently.
Right, and they're doing all the testing.
Yeah, they have to do a donor list. And then, but in the meantime, while we're waiting for that all to happen, my favorite Romulan shows up.
Oh my gosh,
Commander Tomalak,
the one-armed man. Now I know you love him from BS5, but he was the one-armed man in the movie adaptation of The Fugitive.
I watched The Fugitive for the first time in college. I just walked in while someone else was watching it, and I walked in and I was like, "Hey, it's Tomalak," and everyone looked at me like I had two heads.
That's a great flick. We watched that not that long ago because the sequel to that it was a spiritual cousin, because it continued. Tommy Lee Jones's character was the U.S. Marshals, which I loved. It was early film. It was a later film before he ended up going to jail for drug charges of Robert Downey Jr. He came out in 1998.
Interesting.
Great film that I love. That I would recommend. They're easy to find on streaming. But yeah, you're right. It was great to see. This was the Tomalak has 4 appearances in TNG, but only 2 of them are real.
And he's so
the other
memorable.
2,
every time.
So we see him here, and we see him in The Defector, which is one of my absolute favorite episodes.
Defector's a good episode. And then we see
and then he shows up.
Future Imperfect. Yeah. And then
he's a hologram, and then you see him in All Good Things, where he's alt history. So
but he's got a great line in that one. How long are we going to stare at each other across the neutral zone?
Like this. I noticed at sickbay when Beverly is in there and is like super busy. I'm like, did they also hit an asteroid on the way in? Because it's like every bed is full of somebody. So it's like, well, let's really load up the extras.
Right, Jillian Flu is going through, didn't you know?
Yeah. Right. I think it's weird when Geordi does finally get out of the pit. He's climbing up this weird little Superman-made looking rock, like laying flat on his stomach rock formation. Then he slides back down again. They end up using that again in, I think, the most toys later in the season with the colony, the guy that gets poisoned by the guy that kidnapped Data. It just looked really familiar. Absolute favorite scene of mine, one of the ever, is when Beverly brings Worf in to explain to him that he's the only compatible donor, and he's really bristling, and she's like, this Romulan didn't kill your parents, and you're the only one who can save his life. And then he just stands up and says, then he will die. And I was like, yes. I thought that was,
the Klingons do not like Romulans, and Worf particularly does not like Romulans.
Right. So yeah, Geordi is walking, and he's like, you get this whole scene where it's a Wesley saves day thing. He says, well, if you send a probe down with a neutrino, this and that, Geordi will see it, and then he can push a couple buttons, and we'll know he's found it, and then we can beam him up from that. So they do that, and then when Geordi's out, he's walking towards it, and he gets whacked on the back, and it's again another Romulan who ends up being just a total, like, he's just total party line, like, well, in a few millennia when the human race is extinct and the Romulan flag spans across the galaxy, and Geordi's like, yeah, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen. The whole exchange about the Romulan's like, oh, you're blind without that device? He's like, yeah, I was born this way. And your parents let you live. What kind of a question is that? And describes him as no wonder the humans can't get ahead. You waste time and resources on defective children. It's pretty cool that Geordi can run a diagnostic when he's blind by pushing a couple of buttons on the. What does that tell him? He's like, I ran a diagnostic on my visor. How? So there's just a lot of. I mean, I love this episode.
Does he push the buttons and then put it back on, or he just holds it and he still tell it?
It looked like he was like click, 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 click.
Well, yeah, he's got to push buttons. I just don't remember if he like puts it back in, because
he must have put it back on, and then there was a like, okay,
yeah, because there's like neural feedback.
I love so Worf and Riker end up having a heart to heart. So Worf just shows up at Riker's quarter, and Riker's doing paperwork. But I do love that he appears to be doing shots while or drinking sake or something. Yeah. Because he's like, hold on. And then he's like, all right. I don't think it was alcohol because he didn't grimace. He wasn't like he was like taking a shot of bourbon or something. I just thought that was kind of funny. But this was one of a few instances, particularly early in the series, where you see this mentorship friendship between Worf and Riker kind of play out because Worf is looking for someone to kind of educate him in humanity, and Riker is kind of the guy.
Yeah.
So I love seeing that back and forth. I think it's one of the dynamics of the cast that people never talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's the obvious ones. Oh, there's Data and Geordi, or there's Beverly and Picard, or there's Riker and Troy is one of the big ones. But you just never really talk about. You don't really hear people talk about Worf and Riker that much. So I thought
but this relationship is really important, especially in what's the episode name? It's where Worf breaks his back.
The ethics.
Ethics, yeah. So in ethics, it's a very important plot point. So this is not a relationship that goes away or has no relevance. It's very important later.
Right. All right. So the Romulan sickbay is getting ready to expire, and Worf goes to see him, and this guy is great. Come close to me, Klingon. Let me die with my hands at your throat. And Worf just simply says, "Well, there's a substance in my cells that you need to live." And he says, "So you've come to get me to beg for my life?" And Worf says, "No." He grabs him and pulls him in, and he says, "I would rather die than pollute my body with Klingon filth." And I thought this could have gone one of two ways, and Worf could have gone, yeah, Doc, let's why don't you take that blood sample now and pollute this guy's body with Klingon filth?
Yeah,
but he just kind of wanders off instead.
Yeah, when I saw this the first time, I was convinced that Worf's vindictiveness would have taken over and just been like,
yeah,
then that would have been polluted.
It'd be a big FU. But yeah, he kind of wanted. So we're going back and forth on the planet. Now the other Romulan, his legs really don't work. Geordi starts to lose his interface with the visor. But I kept looking at Geordi's uniform. It's like 10% cloth at this point and 90% sludge. So I'm like, I don't know, it would look great in a, if they didn't just put their clothes back in the replicator to get new ones, this would have made a great Tide commercial. Because it's like, well, you can't, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, in TNG, for all we know, they actually do that. Like,
yeah,
we have heard, we don't really see anyone put it in the replicator. We assume, but there could still be laundry. We don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, then, they retconned it in Discovery because that's how people got the uniforms.
Yeah, well, Discovery just does whatever it wants. So, but we do not see a washing machine in quarters, so it is possible. But I'm just saying, we can't rule it out.
You don't see a guy running around doing laundry. So,
because at least in TOS, they appear to be doing laundry.
It's pretty handy.
Undiscovered country.
But it's pretty handy that the Romulan can figure out Geordi's instructions to modify the tricorder. Because what they figure out to do is they take the tricorder, and it was the Romulan suggestion, and basically stick the visor to the end of it, and then and then it turns into basically a Geiger, or it turns into a compass that can help them find Wesley's probe. But yeah, it's a good thing that the Romulan knows what the hell he's talking about, because he's like, George's like, well, connect the something pod to the blah, blah, blah. And the Romulan could be, what?
I don't know this Federation technology, but he does.
Exactly.
Which, is fairly on point even for Star Trek, with the Romulans knowing all sorts of people's secrets, because that's what they do.
That is what they do. A cool scene in the ready room with Picard and Worf, where Worf is trying to have a kind of last conversation. Picard is trying to have a last conversation with Worf about moving forward with this deal. And Worf tries this cop-out where he's like, well, if you order me to do it, I will, of course, obey. And then there's this long pause. And Worf says, Lieutenant, you're dismissed. I really appreciated that. I thought, because Picard looked at him and he said, that's in this case, in that situation, it was more like the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. And as it turns out, after Worf walks out, Picard calls Beverly and he says, well, don't ask for Worf's help anymore. And he says, well, I don't need to, because the guy's dead. Whoops. Which frankly, at that point,
I mean, the Romulan didn't want his help anyway. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, I understand what everyone's trying to do, but it was kind of a moot point.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was interesting. But again, always doing what Star Trek does best, which is throwing you in a moral quandary and saying, hey, what would I do in this situation?
Mhm.
Or, would I make the tough choice, or it's an impossible choice? Kind of like, what would I do? So, but anyway, yes, you're
I
right.
also
So we had some
appreciate that they
interaction. Yeah.
didn't have like Worf go, "Oh no, I was bad, I was wrong, I'm going to change my
Yeah.
mind." They let Worf do Worf and not
Right.
have to. Like, it's something that a lot of times like modern writing is afraid to do, of making one of our heroes like make a choice that makes us uncomfortable, perhaps.
Right. Do something that we wouldn't do, where more of us would be like, well, it's the Christian in me or the good person that wants to save somebody who's like to do the Star Trek-y thing, like Worf from the Federation, where Worf, while raised by humans, is still a Klingon and still has those, those certain.
Well, he's not just a Klingon; he's a Klingon whose family was murdered by the Romulans.
Right.
So he has cause, justified or not. He has cause.
Right. Well, they say, you're going to feel how you're going to feel. And so but it does make you as the viewer have those, kind of conversations with yourself. And that's really what one of Star Trek's biggest strengths is. So,
yeah. But I think that the point of this is to juxtapose then what happens later with Geordi.
Right.
So that we have those two competing viewpoints that are both posited by two of our heroes, so that the argument or the moral quandary can take place at home with you rather than the episode preaching at you. And that's something that older Star Trek did a lot better.
Right. No, totally agreed. So anyway, Tomalak, the Romulan guy, has now made his way across the neutral zone, which Picard told him not to do. But he's all full of piss and vinegar, and he's like, "Give me my guy back. It's your only chance to live." And Picard said he's dead, and then we get he's the first to fall, Picard, and then we get this exchange, which is like, it's purely for the benefit of the audience. I wrote, I love how Worf and Riker go through saying all the most obvious shit to Picard, like, well, if we drop the shields, the Romulans can attack, but we have to drop the shields to use the transport. I'm like, yeah, we know. Thanks a lot. But, I guess you got to dumb it down for the audience. You got to remember there's,
also you got to remind people, because not everyone remembers those things week to week. Like, do the shields work when the transporters? Right. Well, no.
Yeah. But I did love, so they do, because it's at that exact moment that Geordi and the other Romulan have made it to the beacon, and Geordi goes beep beep bop bop boop, and they beam him up. They have to figure out to beam him up, and I do love it that they're hanging here, and Picard says over audio, not video, he says, "We're gonna have to drop our shields to beam our people up. It's your person and our person," and
miraculously, your one-man craft has a second survivor.
Right. Yeah. Whoops. But I do love it how when the shields go down, they make this really sad noise. I'm like, that's kind of, that's kind of weird. But it's great that they didn't do that. And the Romulans just didn't decide to blow them up anyway. Like, well, our guy will die gloriously, so let's just blow up this ship. So it's kind of a good thing that didn't happen. I kind of dug the Romulan salute, because when the Geordi and the other guy are beamed up, they both turn around to face the screen, and Tomalak comes up and he does the Romulan, like he, claps his right hand over his left breast, which is it was kind of TOS Romulan thing, or the Klingons did that in TOS.
Well, the Romulans got it from the Romans.
Right.
So you have to remember that the Romulans particularly are a fictionalized sci-fi version of Rome.
Well, yeah, they have their own Senate, so
but I'm just saying, like, especially if you watch like TOS, and it even continues into TNG, they're kind of the 1960s idealized version of ancient Rome, which is why I took issue with some of the things that they did later with the Romulans and current stuff, because it's very different. But
one of my favorite episodes of TOS is that Bread and Circuses, where they go to the modern day, the 1960s Roman planet.
That was pretty hilarious. And here's the Jupiter 5. It's a car.
Yeah, the Jupiter 5. Yeah, exactly. And then so everything is good, and I do love how Picard says, "We'll escort you back to the Romulan neutral zone," and then they fly in different directions. I'm like, did they have to turn around and follow him? But Picard gets a great parting line: brinkmanship is a dangerous game. I've always remembered that line, because it's true. Brinkmanship, going to the edge of the war and then stopping short,
stopping on the brink.
stopping them. I thought that was awesome. So yeah, so I love this episode. This was an 8.5 for me. I did kind of dial it back for some of the dumb stuff, like Geordi taking a 30-foot fall and landing on his face and being like, "Ooh, I'm good," and then making the pitons, melting rock with his phaser and then picking them up. It's kind of like, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the one Nazi reaches down to pick up the medallion and burns his hand and drops it, and then Karen Allen walks over with a piece of cloth piece of cloth and picks it up. So it's like, it's
you
just
at least
stuff
need
that
an
works.
oven mitt for that. Jeez.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was a burned down bar. She must have had an oven mitt if she had an oven in back.
Yeah.
This was to me, this was the first full episode of engaging with the Romulans, because we had them come back at the very end of season 1, and Mark Alimo was the first TNG Romulan we saw. He was one of two. True, yeah. Then we had Carolyn Seymour as the first female TNG Romulan we'd seen in Contagion in season 2, which is another episode with the Iconians, which is an episode I loved. So this was the first really this was the first time Romulans and the Federation were physically together. They weren't just talking to each other on a view screen. Well, no, the Carolyn Seymour, Picard did get beamed onto their ship at the end of Contagion for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But this was the first real fleshing things out, and it was some great character moments for Worf, and there was a great Worf and Geordi moment, or Worf and Riker moments that I love. So for me, I thought this was a great example of how even from the jump in season 3, it was like a switch got flipped and the show was just on its way up. It was headed towards greatness. So yeah, absolutely great episode.
Yeah. Fantastic episode. I would probably give it like an 8.5 as well. It's a good one. And I just like Romulans. I like episodes with Romulans. They're one of my favorites. So
yeah. Awesome. All right. I'll rip through a couple of fun facts. This first one, I'm like, it's like hearing your favorite actor who's cast in a movie could have been. So it's like hearing that Tom Selleck could have been Harrison or could have been Indiana Jones, which makes no sense. It says in early drafts of the script, Troy was also trapped on the Galorndon core. Can you imagine this? Well, I mean, if maybe it was Troy and a female Romulan, I guess that would have changed things, but that would have been kind of bizarre. The plot point of Worf letting the Romulan die met with great resistance of the staff and Michael Dorn when it was suggested by Michael Pillar. That's
understandably so.
Yeah,
but
I get so. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that it was a good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. First and only time the rank of Commodore is mentioned in Star Trek: The Next Generation, when Geordi is kind of making fun of the other Romulan, saying that he's acting like a big shot. First Star Trek episode directed by David Carson, who would go on to do later episodes of the show and DS9 and Star Trek Generations. So obviously very, very accomplished. It says, ironically, Stephen Rankin, who played the character of the guy who was dying in sickbay, would then go on to play a Klingon in the episode Invasive Procedures. It was when the actor John Glover shows up to steal the Daximian, early season 2 of DS9. And a Cardassian and Colonel Green in Enterprise's Demons. That one I did not know. Who just appeared.
He's very tiny on a screen, so it's hard to tell, but he's there.
Yeah, he's being watching archival footage tiny on crackly screen. So, Worf says, this was the line I mentioned, that Worf says if Picard orders him to do the transition, he would obey. However, 2 other characters strongly suggest Worf undergo the procedure, which means they could have ordered him to do so as well. But
technically, only Riker could have, because the Doctor is not in his command structure.
Well, but the Doctor is able to order Picard to do things. So
for certain things, right? You have to remember that the Doctor's authority is limited to certain things in how military structure works.
Right, especially things related to the captain and saying,
the Doctor can't order the captain for medical necessities, but for this sort of thing, it's a little iffy.
Yeah. No, it's a valid point. This is interesting. Brandon Braga had tried to watch TNG early on, obviously prior to this episode, was disappointed with the show. But this episode hooked him into the Star Trek universe, recalling his reaction. And when he viewed this installment, Braga says, "I'm like, this is the good stuff. this was not like the first next gen I had watched. Brandon Braga, who obviously later went on to be very pivotal, being a part of Star Trek Voyager, and I believe this show as well. So, good random choice. I enjoyed this episode very, very much. So, well, cool. Good deal. All right, let's move on to talk a little bit more about The Center Seat, the documentary by the fine folks at Nacelle that we started talking about in our last episode. Oh, I realize I just closed my notes, so I'll probably let you start talking. But we're going to jump into talking about episodes 3 and 4. Episode 3 will be Trekking Through the 70s, Phase 2, and Star Trek the Motion Picture. Peter, take it away while I rescue my notes.
Yeah, so episode 3, we kind of get, the post TOS, just kind of, I think we get the first talks of like the convention and all the fan stuff, but then we get the whole bit of like, well, Paramount's restructuring and wants to start a new network, and they have this thing sitting there like, okay, maybe we can bring back Star Trek and it'll launch our new network. Paramount tries to do this a lot, and they did it with like Enterprise, Voyager, like it's like, here's our new network, UPN, and its flagship show, Enterprise. Like they do that all the time.
UPN was around for maybe 10 years, I think, because it came out. 90. Well, I mean, if you think of it from 95 to 2005, it would have been that, because 2005 is when they canceled Enterprise.
Correct.
95 is when Voyager launched, and Voyager was their flagship show. So it was at least those 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer it was beyond that.
I don't think it was that much longer. But so this was another thing that they were trying. And so this goes through the whole background of them, like talking about rebuilding the sets, rebuilding the Enterprise. They went and redesigned a lot. We even get some of the footage, which has been resurfacing over the last couple of years, test footage of different people playing different characters, like Zahn.
Great stuff with whoever was who was testing for Decker with his gigantic, afro. White guy afro, which I think was an interesting look for Star Trek.
I'm kind of glad that they didn't go for that, because it would have dated it pretty seriously. But
and Stephen Collins, for the fact that he didn't end up being such a great guy in real life, was really great in that role. I really did like him as Decker, and they lean kind of heavily on the fact, like, well, he was the son of Commodore Decker from this original episode. That has literally never been spoken, but it's implied.
Yeah, it's heavily implied, which is interesting, because a lot of people think that the first film that really like referenced previous stuff was Wrath of Khan, because of bringing back Khan, but clearly Motion Picture had ties into the original series, like deep ties into the original series, where we brought back writers from TOS to work on Phase 2, and they were writing scripts. Incidentally, a bunch of those scripts ended up being worked into TNG season 2.
Right.
The Child and such.
Kind of
heavily reworked, but they got through. But there was a lot of back and forth on who was doing what, and like you hear about some of the sketchy, like, we want Nimoy, but we can't get Nimoy, and so now we're going to go with Zahn. And so, hey, you're guaranteed to beat this character, and then it's not happening.
Right, the old Hollywood guarantee, right? Before we got to that, I was shocked to hear that Paramount put a price tag of $150 million or $150,000 on Star Trek in the early 70s, that Gene could have bought it and he didn't have the money, which, who's, especially if my favorite app on my phone is the inflation calculator. So if I was to do that here, I'll do a live update here on my phone, and I'll tell you how much that would amount to.
A lot.
But because we're watching Mad Men right now, rewatching it because I've watched it in the past, but I always love anytime they mention, dollars or whatever, that it's that would have been a cool $1 million.
That's nothing.
Cool $1 million
comparatively.
Yeah, well, but he didn't have it.
Oh no, he wouldn't have had it. But I'm just saying that's not a lot in today's money.
Oh, to buy it now? Are you kidding me?
For a franchise, that's nothing. So,
well, I mean, Paramount itself just got bought for how many billions of dollars by the Skydance people. But in the meantime, you kind of go through the process of seeing Gene making all of these other sci-fi programs in the early 70s, some of which are still floating around. You know, the Questor tapes, and I'm going to draw a blank on the name of some of the other ones.
Yeah, I don't remember
but
them all. They're
a
around.
lot of them, yeah, they rolled in, actors that had been on TNG because that's obviously a fairly common practice. If you have a producer or a writer or a director
Yeah,
who
you got
has,
some
like
favorite
James
people.
Gunn has you have a stable of people you work with. You have, much like we do on this show, we have a stable of people that we bring in as a third chair when we have somebody on one of our shows. We have a group of people we like working with because we know that we work well with them. So that makes sense. But none of them obviously really clicked because I don't know if the majority of them even are something that you can find and watch anymore, except clips on YouTube here and there. So, they start talking about moving from phase 2. So they've got all this, and it's like 1976-ish, and then spring of 77 comes around, and Star Wars comes out, and
they talk
blows
about
that
how
plan out of the water.
The interesting thing is, like, this documentary made a big deal about how it wasn't just Star Wars; it was also Close Encounters. And then there was also, a couple years earlier, there was also 2001. So so I think it wasn't just Star Wars, but Star Wars was kind of the final catalyst that kicked it over the edge to where they're like, let's do a film instead. But then there was also talk about doing something that a lot of people don't really do, but has happened a couple times, where you have basically a theatrical pilot and then you start a TV show. Like Star Wars: The Clone Wars did that, for instance.
Well, Battlestar Galactica did
had
that
similar.
Originally. It was in the Buck Rogers, I think, in R.I.P. Gil Gerard, who recently passed away, did that. Got a limited release in theaters, and then he had transitioned.
But it was
into
interesting.
a TV
I don't
show.
think I'd heard that bit before, where the idea was like, oh, we'll do a big pilot and then we'll do a show, and so then they were batting that back and forth for a while, and eventually they settled on doing a film. But even after they decided on a film, like, they got a director at some point in there, but they didn't have a script.
Right. Oh my God.
That was like the most horrific. Like, I'd heard bits and pieces of that story, but that was the most horrific part of this episode.
I was texting Larry Nemechek, who's been on the show with us, because he appears in this several times doing commentary, as does Tim Russ and Nicole DeBoer, who I would love to have on our show as Redax at some point to interview her. But of not only what you're describing. Oh, I did make a note of one of the ideas thrown out, or I think it was it Roddenberry's idea or someone else's, that Kirk fights Jesus on the bridge of the Enterprise.
That was Roddenberry's. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Because and again we get Harold Livingston, who looked, he was all of the people really involved. Some of the people really involved with this are really very elderly at the point they filmed this. And again, this doco is 5 years old. So, I did, him talking about his interactions with Gene and kind of overall some of the back and forth with not only in this segment, but in the next in episode 4 of this, were really pretty horrific, and it's speaking ill of the dead, and which I don't necessarily love, because Gene is not really here to tell his side of it. So it's a lot of who knows
it's
what.
A lot of he said, he might have said sort of deal.
Yeah, exactly. Or he did this, or was interpreted in this fashion. But some of Gene's ideas, like Planet of the Titans, sounds like a totally awesome. Like, I want to see a Planet of the Titans. That's a great name for
that
something.
Sounds like that could be interesting. So.
I really dig on that. But yeah, the whole thing, Paramount going back and forth, we're going to have a network, we're not going to have a network.
The really crazy thing for me was when they were still writing the script as they were filming the whole film. Like,
that was a mess.
Like, they were changing, would change the script pages they finished shooting, and then they got new pages, and then they had to reshoot. And it was just a nightmare. And like, you could really hear like the bitterness of the original screenwriter, who was just like, Gene and I were going back and forth and rewriting each other's pages. And it's like, this just sounds like couldn't have you guys gotten in the same room and just talked about it? Yeah. But it sounded like when they got in the same room, they just argued. Yeah. So
that's what I was messaging Larry about. I'm like, dude, this is stressful to watch them talk about TMP. It was which of course led me to name our episode, the Star Trek's Game of Thrones, the motion picture, because everything was this massive pissing match. Yeah. That nobody was going to get over.
The thing is, like, you don't, like, for the longest time in like the readily accessible lore about this stuff that you would hear at least when I was growing up, you heard about how, like, Wrath of Khan had some like craziness in the beginning because, you know, eventually they got Nicholas Meyer to come in and write it pretty quickly, which we see later.
Right.
But you didn't hear about like the absolute insanity that went on behind motion picture. Like we all knew about
God,
TNG
I
season
know.
1 being insane. We all knew about
Right.
like the studio being like, nah, your budget's small for Wrath of Khan, but we didn't hear about just the absolute just chaos that was the motion picture.
I mean, yeah, it was a total mess. It was funny. David Gadarax, who was on, who we already kind of touched upon, said the only other thing he did was The Man from Atlantis, which is, it's funny. That's, it was a series in the 70s, and the star of that was, I'm going to draw a blank. Remember, Step by Step, the sitcom, and the guy, why am I drawing a blank on it? It was one of the regulars on Dallas. Bobby was named his character. Patrick, my God, somebody is going to zap me. But anyway, he was the star of the man. He was basically a fish man who had a series. Marvel published a few issues of a comic about it. I have one. Patrick Duffy was the Man from Atlantis. Thank you very much.
There we go.
But yeah, just the absolute vitriol, like you were saying, between Livingston and Roddenberry. I was like, I just didn't know it was this bad.
I mean, I knew it was great, but not that level.
Yeah, the way they describe how they are describing, and again, everything is allegedly. It's not like somebody, if there's a recording out there of Gene doing these things, we've never seen it or heard about it. Him sneaking around and stealing pages and sending scripts to someone at the network and them saying this is terrible, and then, well, I didn't send that to you. It's Gene's. Is just crazy.
Yeah.
I did note that when they started to feature Persis Kambata, who was Miss India in 1965, by the way, my God, she was hot. When they shaved her head, she was almost hotter. I don't know how that really works out, but it was great. They do a whole part of it of building the Connie 2, the Constitution class refit, which is the most beautiful space vehicle in any science fiction that I think will ever be. And you can please feel free to fight me about it over at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com or jump on our Discord. No one will ever convince me that the Connie 2 is not the most beautiful thing that was ever made.
It's
for
a
anything
very,
fictional.
very beautiful ship.
It is the most bulletproof design I think that I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, it was like this insane race. It's kind of like, you've heard of what a breakneck thing it was making Star Wars and how it almost killed George Lucas, and he had a nervous breakdown and they put him in the hospital for nervous exhaustion. I was feeling nervous exhaustion just listening to them talk about this. It was
one of the things that I hadn't heard was that they were still doing the final cuts of the special effects the day of.
Right.
Like they took the film as it was. They had just finished it. So it was still drying from the solution, and they were like, it'll finish drying in the reel when it's running. And it was like,
right.
You were cutting it that close? Like, that's down the wire.
It's completely nuts.
And the studio said, like, this movie is releasing and it will be showing regardless of if it shows plates that says VFX here. We don't care. It's airing.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah, right. And it was funny because when we get into the next episode, we're talking about we talk about the Wrath of Khan. How I feel like there were absolutely no lessons learned because they do this. They kind of end up doing the same thing all over again.
Not quite as bad, but very similar.
Yeah, but it's very similar. But yeah. Wrapping up episode 3, TMP did come out. It was a huge financial success, which to me is mystifying. But it does show that people were that hungry for Star Trek. 10 years after it got canceled, the animated series notwithstanding, people were just falling all over themselves to see more Star Trek. And visually, they knocked it out of the park. I mean, the new Enterprise set design and then, of course, the Connie 2 itself were pretty spectacular. In some ways, very 70s. I get that. But, you can't see it on the screen, but Peter's background is a picture of the TMP Enterprise bridge.
Actually, this is the Wrath of Khan bridge. But
oh, yeah, no. Are you sure? I thought the Wrath of Khan bridge was a little darker.
No, the colors and such.
Well, regardless, they were very similar. And what I've always heard is that design has been studied by NASA and other military organizations as an efficiency in command and control.
The TOS bridge was studied originally too for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. With the, because this one was, it had 3 stations in the back, engineering, comm, science, captain sat in the middle, and then you had nav and helm where they always were. And then all the way off in the corner, you had a tactical station, which was a sit down spot, and then little standing stations all around. So it's just very, very cool design. But yeah, I just absolutely couldn't believe that everything they did, and you thought they're going to do all this and it's going to just be a train wreck and then Star Trek will go away forever. The success of that film is really the only reason that everything kind of exists now. Because everything that Trek did at this point made a success that somehow inexplicably carried things forward into the next episode of the documentary, which is the episode 4, which is called Trek Goes to the Movies. They were already there, but they're still at the movies. But no, they talk about the Star Trek film trilogy. So basically 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, they mostly focus on 2 and 3 here.
And 2. Yeah, 2, 3, and 4 just. You know what? I think 4 is going to be the next. 4 is the next episode. So this is just 2 and 3. So yeah, that was a misnomer by me. So this is parts 1 and 2 of a trilogy, as it were. So, yeah, they jump right into it saying Gene was so against the death of Spock that he leaked it to the media when they were starting in pre-production. It was like,
I know someone did. Somebody did. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't have any corroborative anything, but based on like most of the things that I've heard, it wouldn't surprise me that happened.
Right.
But
and resulted in a horrifying backlash from fans.
For sure did, which then of course led to what happened later, where originally they were going to kill Spock in the first 10 minutes.
Right.
And then in the film they did the psych out where it's like, oh yeah, Spock is dead. Oh wait, it's just a simulation. Like I thought that was a clever way to deal with it.
Right. And they say it later on. They say, well, having that Kobayashi Maru segment is the, in the very opening of the film, if someone has heard, oh, they're going to kill Spock off, but then they see it right away, it was like, oh, it's a fake out, we're good. It kind of throws the scent off to bring it back around again to make his death in the end not only
a big deal.
Very poignant, but also a big surprise. And it works incredibly well. So, but again, as I said a minute ago, it shocks me how there were not entirely the same, but how little they learned from saying, okay, well, we got to make this complex film, but I want it out on June 6th, which is 14 months from now or something. It's like,
that still just boggles my mind. It's like, we don't have a script yet. We've booked a theater. Are you dumb?
It's reminiscent of how the MCU has floundered since Endgame.
Yeah,
because they're like we got Disney Plus now. We got to keep
like with Black Panther, where they had to like finish that final VFX shot really, really fast, and you can tell the film suffers for it.
Right. And they have their like, we've got too much work and we don't have enough visual artists and we're underpaying them. So you're getting, and it's when the work suffers, people stop wanting to see it. Now that's not really what happened. It's just surprising to me that somebody didn't say, all right, we're going to go back to the drawing board. Everything that we floundered through in TMP, we're not going to do it the same. And, in a lot of ways they did. So it's crazy. So they talk, Nicholas Meyer, who we've interviewed on this program, super nice guy, was a very big part of this, talking about how he took a greatly reduced fee to he said, I really want to make this film, so I'm going to make some sacrifices. And he did writes and rewrites.
Also like rewrote the script for free, which was, I don't think I knew that, but that's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty wild. But again, and they portray it as, fighting Gene all the way because, Gene wanted to have it his way or the highway. And it was decided at the end of TMP, they kind of kicked him upstairs in a consultative role to kind of keep him out of the way.
Which, to be fair, that's... there isn't really a nice way to say it, but that is what has been the feeling about how things went between Roddenberry and a lot of the different production cast after the original series, sometimes even during, because like we hear a lot about what happened on TNG season 1, and it was a lot of the same stuff. So as much as I want to give Gene the benefit of the doubt, I would love to, but there's just, the problem is there's a pattern, And it's like
it's a preponderance of people corroborating.
I don't know.
It's unfortunate.
And it's understandable that a creator wants to be protective of his work and want, like, I have a vision for it, I want it to be this way. That's completely understandable. And you'll hear me advocating for that a lot of times too. But it's just sad, I think, is really what it boils down to. That there was this conflict. And who was right, who was wrong, I don't know. We got a really good film out of this. Perhaps the best.
Right. Yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. I've never talked to anyone who's had familiarity with original Star Trek who doesn't, in the films, and doesn't mention the Wrath of Khan, and then of course Star Trek IV, the one with the whales, which is to me in a lot of ways the best known Trek film for people who are not necessarily Star Trek fans.
It's a great,
particularly in the 80s. Yeah, they've heard it like, okay, well, they're going to go back and it's set in contemporary times. But we'll talk about that obviously more. Producer writer Bob Sallin talking about how they made the SETI eel and how they made that was fun stuff. Yeah, it's one of the most visceral moments in franchise history. I loved, and I never heard this before, how everyone spoke of the awe and the terror of being around Ricardo Montalban. He was kind of admired and feared. But in the end of it, he just wanted to be directed like any actor would be.
He was just like,
it was funny.
Please tell me what you need.
Exactly.
You're just letting me be the maestro here. I need you to tell me what to do. I am the actor, you're the director. And I thought that to me was a very refreshing take, because that doesn't happen a lot. At least not from what you hear, right? Where there's the stars are like, I get to make all the big calls. And then you have like the egos of the actors fighting the egos of the directors. Whereas this one was like, the director was like, I don't know that I want to come up against you because like you're a big deal. But the actor was just like, please tell me what to do. Like, it was kind of that's a nice thing that I don't hear very much from how Hollywood works. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know a whole lot of people that work there, but that's my perception.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting to, obviously we're at the end of the Wrath of Khan. One of the big things about Leonard Nimoy coming back doing is that he wanted to step in the director's chair for the next film. Producing for me what is my personal favorite Star Trek film, which I've always said, which is Star Trek III. I like the heart of the story.
That's a great story.
I like Christopher Lloyd's performance as Commander Krug, the Klingon. You're seeing Klingons really painted as most ruthless kind of villainy that you have seen them to up to this point. It's a story that has real stakes because you see the death of Kirk's son
and the death of the Enterprise.
And they blow up the Enterprise, and I wrote, "I'm not crying, you're crying." That kills me every time.
It's so sad. Like the ship is a character, and they mention that in this, and it's like the funny thing to me was that there was a guy who's like, "I got to blow up the Enterprise as VFX," and then he got death threats. It's like, oh come on, that's annoying.
Yeah, exactly.
But to be fair, like the Enterprise, she's a character, and so to see her just die on screen, it's just like. Oof, this is tough. It
is a tough one. Yeah.
It's this one I would say is probably more painful than the Enterprise D in Generations.
Yeah. Which they of course dialed that backwards because
and then you
the
get
Enterprise D rides again.
Yeah, the Enterprise comes back. But
which really, I think so does this ship too, but it's renamed.
Not really.
You're rechristened. Yeah.
This ship be done. The Enterprise A is a completely different ship.
So, that is true, even though it looks the same.
Oh, it looks exactly the same. So, but that was also, as we talked about how Wrath of Khan was, where they're like, oh, well, we're going to save budget. That was a budget saving element because there are actually some ideas of the Enterprise A being a different ship that were floated around in production for a while that just never came to fruition. And so they just went to the refit studio model. So like, we already have this.
I know, and it's so beautiful. I love seeing it. Felt like in this second segment, the second part of it, they piped in Ron Moore, which I love seeing Ron Moore. Ron, we hope to have you on the show someday because we're such big fans. And then we kind of wrap up. So I would say overall, out of these two segments, my biggest takeaway that kind of makes me grit my teeth is all of the trash that gets talked about Roddenberry. It doesn't mean that it's all true. It doesn't mean that it's all untrue. Everything in life is, Don Henley of the Eagles has a solo in one of his solo songs has a great lyric. There's three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the cold hard truth. That's what this is. Roddenberry may have been this larger than life bullish kind of guy, or he was that to some people and other things to other people. He was, he had friends and he
was
family,
a human being. He was
wife.
Multifaceted.
Yeah. Right. So, and it's just like with everything with friends and family and coworkers, there's always things that we could do differently and regrets that we have and sorries that we should say that we don't say or don't get said to us. And there's probably a lot of this, but yeah, this seemed really, and kudos to Brian Volkweiss and Nacelle for getting some different perspectives on all of this. I kind of applaud them for that.
I like how they didn't sugarcoat it, because a lot of times, yes, there's somewhere it's like, I wouldn't mind hearing someone who's a little bit more positive, sure. But the fact that this is one of the ones that we actually get on camera, like, this is what people felt about it, like,
right,
and we're not filtering it, like, that's important for the sake of posterity.
I kind of tend to agree. So this was this was great, and I get the feeling, and I didn't. And again, I did watch these when they came out, but I don't have any specific recollections of what happened.
I didn't, because I didn't have access to where they were at the time.
Yeah. I believe they're really teeing up episode 5 to just be about Star Trek 4, which is great because there's so much in that movie. So I look forward to talking about that. But yeah, with that, that's our show.
Yeah.
So we look forward to, we've got another episode where we're going to pick a random episode and talk about it, and then talk about the next 2 segments of this. And then by the time that's done, we're going to get into talking about Starfleet Academy, which I've had the screeners for a couple of weeks, but because it's the holidays and stuff, I haven't really raced through it. But we just watched episode 2 this morning, and I definitely have thoughts, which I'm going to save, and I'm curious to see what Peter thinks about it as well.
I haven't seen it at all. So.
Yeah, I know, but like I said, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I've seen it, but I mean, I have thoughts, and I look forward to talking about it. But with that, that's our show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I'm not terribly active, but you can poke at me and I might say something. I'm mostly on our Discord, but other than that, you can find me over on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel, where we play Star Trek Adventures, amongst other things. And you can find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Fantastic. And I am on all the socials personally as at the C3, TheCeeThree, but I also do the socials for Secret Friends Unite, which you can find in particular of note over on TikTok, and then also on our YouTube channel, where you see all of our great spotlight interviews. But I also do my little kitchen / office talks, where I just do 3 minutes or less about something I'm enjoying this week. And believe it or not, people actually watch them. So I'm very enthused by people tuning into them. So thank you very much. Peter, I know you were planning to do your first one. I haven't seen it yet.
I was probably going to do it this afternoon.
Okay, cool. So Peter has something, we won't spoil it, but tune into our YouTube and our TikTok channel, Secret Friends Unite, just to check that out. But also a great way to interact with us. 2 great ways to reach us is over on our Secret Friends Unite Discord, free to join. Lots of great chats going on about pop culture and all kinds of different stuff. Search for us. If you don't find a link, give one of us a ping, and we'll get you added. And then if you have thoughts about anything in pop culture at all, Star Trek, Star Wars, TV, movies, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Drop us a letter, because we would absolutely love to read that on the airwaves. But with that, folks, I'm going to bid you adieu. Happy holidays, because by the time you're listening to this, we will be in the week of Christmas and wrapping up Hanukkah, and if I'm not mistaken, and other holidays. But you will hear from us again in the new year, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look at the calendar, because I think we have a couple of SFUs left in another episode of Holocron. But we will catch you in January, and getting into 2026, and kind of teeing up all the exciting stuff we have to look forward to. So we will see you then. Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member. Get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.
Hey, Secret Friends Nation, thanks for sticking around after the credits, or if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. I am joined by a friend of the show, super great guy who has been on with us many, many times before. This is actor and, dare I say, philanthropist, Mr. John Billingsley, who was the wonderful Dr. Phlox on Star Trek Enterprise, as well as a number of other things. John, it is always awesome to see you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I think you have to be able to write checks with more zeros than I'm comfortable writing to actually be a philanthropist. Do-gooder, I'll take that. How about
do-good? Oh boy, it sounds like it should be on the old Batman show. Oh, do-gooder fighting the Joker.
Yeah.
Well, John, I wanted to slide you in here because, you know, we got some crazy stuff going on in the country these days. We're just getting off a government shutdown where SNAP benefits were pinched. We're also getting into the holiday seasons where the holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas in this case, where things can traditionally get tight for a lot of people. So I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about the great work that you do with the Hollywood Food Coalition out there in Greater Los Angeles and how people can help.
Terrific. Well, I'll tell you a bit about the Hollywood Food Coalition, and this will be bifurcated because I've always been a great believer that while I work for and represent a charity that I have great faith in and believe does wonderful things, it's just as important, maybe even more important, to think about if you have the impulse to give to us, but you think, maybe I should look closer to home. Fine, do that. I will say that hunger and need and want in this country is sadly only getting worse. 1 in 5 kids in America is food insecure. Some 40% of Americans, if they were hit with an unexpected $400 to $500 bill, their roof caves in, their car is repossessed, wouldn't have the money in the bank account to pay it. There are a limited number of soup kitchens and food rescue organizations in the country. We do something that is very dear to my heart at the Hollywood Food Coalition. We serve a hot meal to all comers 7 nights a week, no questions asked, always providing choice, always providing dignity of service. And we also offer an array of other services to people who come through our doors. We try and, in essence, sort of provide a kind of a soup to nuts experience. If you want your bicycle tire repaired, we've got medical vans. If you want some housing assistance, if you want some kind of referrals to other social service agencies, we very much believe in coalition building through the medium of food. And additionally, we rescue somewhere around 2.5 to 3 million pounds of food a year to share with other not-for-profits, basically to augment and buttress their meal programs. So think about a battered women's shelter that does great work, but may not provide 3 squares a day. Right. We're trying to say, small not-for-profits doing great work, tell us what we can do to help make sure you're feeding the people who come to you for service as best you can. And additionally, every Sunday, we have a wonderful program that we have created with a lot of marvelous people in the community, families, church groups, and schools. We have dropped off at our premises, in essence, every Sunday, somewhere around 3,000 bag lunches. And we make sure those lunches get distributed through some of our community partners all over the city, primarily to people living in homeless encampments. Just a slice of what we do at the Hollywood Food Coalition.
That's fantastic. And so if people want to donate, if they're local and they want to get involved, or if you're not local like myself, I live on the other side of the country, how can they help? Where do they go online to provide assistance?
Easiest thing to do is to go to hofoco.org. Go to our website, and you can, if you live in Los Angeles and you'd be interested in getting involved, you can sign up to cook, you can sign up to serve, you can sign up to pull a shift in our warehouse space and help unload the food that arrives, sort it, cull it, store it, and get it out the door to some of the recipient organizations. And on Sunday, you can help our sandwich distribution program. And you can also donate there at our donation platform. But I also really want to encourage you to consider it, although I think, in a way, where you choose to give $1, it's not so much about the geography, because $1 you give in Portland or Seattle or Los Angeles is still helping people. So if
Right.
this is an organization, the mission appeals to you, you are helping some wonderful people in need. But if you feel you want to work locally, I would only say look around and see what's in your neighborhood, what's in your city, what's in your community, an organization that is working on the ground with people in need. And that could be folks who are experiencing hunger. It could be folks who need legal assistance these days. That's obviously something that's pretty important. It could be
Right.
teaching a kid to read. There's a
Right.
lot of ways you can give back to your community. This happens to be mine. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
But in the holiday season, it's mostly about rolling up your sleeves.
Right. That's fantastic. And as I said, I promised a quick message. So this has been fantastic, John. It's great to see you. Hofoco.org. That's HOFO. Oh, I just lost it.
Oh, you got it. HOFOCO, Hollywood Food Coalition. HOFOCO. And it's
Ho, ho.
Oh,
Oh, ho, ho. All right, John, I will see you in the near future. Happy holidays to all. And thanks for spending this extra time listening.
Thank you. Thank
We'll
you.
see you
Charlie,
soon.
so much. Appreciate it.